Hello, I'm Kathleen Bade. We are talking to superintendents today, and we're headed to Nevada. CJ Anderson joining us now from Elk County School District. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tell us about this area of Nevada, because we were talking about it, and I don't think a lot of people are familiar.
Yeah, so I hail from Elko County, Nevada, and it's the most northeast corner of the state. And it's a very unique district because it's a rural district. Only about 10,000 total kids, but it's one of the larger geographic districts in the nation. I think last I checked, it was the fourth largest. We have over 17,000 square miles that we cover. And over that area, just kids and communities of all different types. It's like 7 totally distinct, unique communities, and just an awesome area of the country in the high desert. And it's kind of an outdoorsman's paradise. Beautiful, beautiful area. I'm happy to be there.
You must put some mileage on the car going to all your different schools.
I really do. I really do. Even just this week prior, so before even coming here to San Diego for this event, within the last week, I probably put about, 12 to 15 hours on the car, just going from place to place. It's impossible to visit all the schools in the same day. There's no way to do it. Even if you start crack of dawn, there's no way. So it's very unique that way.
But is it important for you to be seen there and for them to be able to talk to you in person? Is that a part of your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. I very much like to be present at all the schools. I kind of always pride myself on that first week of school. For sure, I make it to every single school and walk around each one of them and welcome kids to school for that week. And like I said, it takes a while because there's a couple of days where I spend the whole day basically trying to get out to 2 schools, right? Because they can be anywhere from about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from our central office. And so, but I think there's a lot of meaning there, and getting out to those communities, they feel like they're important, like they're just as important as everybody else. In addition to kind of our normal comprehensive schools, we have 4 different K-12 combined schools, and then we even have 4 one-room rural schoolhouses where there's about 8 to 12 kids that go to that school, grades K through 8. And those are in and of themselves, 45 minutes off of any freeway, off of any main road. And so, like I said, you have to make special trips out there. But whether it's just to visit them on the first day of school or one of our teachers wins our monthly award, we don't just ship that in interschool mail. I hop in the car with a board member and my communications friend, and we head out there to, even if it's just to jump out, hand you an award, give them a hug, tell them thank you, and then hop back in the car and go. We always do that in person so everyone feels valued and important.
Well, you use the word unique, and I think that is really apropos in this setting, especially because those communities out there, it has to be a challenge for you to manage and make sure that the schoolhouse that's kind of off on its own has everything it needs to make sure that kids can get into college and follow their dreams, as a school that's larger on the opposite end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it requires you to really be creative in how you make those opportunities available for kids, because at a combined K-12 school of only 100 students, necessarily you're not going to have a teacher that teaches every CTE offering or every elective offering. But if a student's truly passionate about doing those things, we find ways to get them tuned in virtually to a classroom, whether it's a classroom at a more comprehensive high school that we have, or if it's using just online learning opportunities. We are always trying to connect kids to the opportunities that they're most interested in, regardless of where they live or how remotely they live. We want to make sure they're able to pursue whatever their passion is and whatever they're interested in.
What are some of the initiatives or programs that you've started to try and address some of those needs?
I don't want to take any credit for anything that's been started.
Or that you're so excited about and proud of.
Yeah. So we have a very robust CTE program in our district, and we're continuing to try to amplify that and magnify that. And so that's something we really try to do. Again, regardless of where that community is located, we try to make sure they have access to those. So whether it's an ag or ag mech program, we make sure they have those. We have our teacher training classes for high school students who are interested in education. We make sure to have those available to all the schools. And so it's important that when we make those decisions that we say, well, how deployable is this? How expandable is this at every school? And sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but again, we always try to make sure that's an offering we can make. And That's the problem with tiny schools in remote areas. Is we always refer to it as the economies of scale, and you know, whether it's 7 kids in that English classroom or 33 kids in an English classroom, you still need an English teacher there, right? And so we're always having to provide to meet those needs, regardless of what their school size is.
You were talking about having to be creative. Do you have to be in trying to recruit talent with teachers and retain them in some of these areas?
Yeah, and the job market for teachers and staff at our schools is so competitive now, because everyone's in need. There's a teacher shortage. Sometimes it kind of baffles me how, within our own community, people will say, "Oh, my goodness, what's going on with our schools? There's a teacher shortage." And I'm like, just Google it anywhere in the country. There are very few principals and superintendents out there. They're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, no, we're actually pretty good. Go check with the district down the street. They might have something for you." Everyone is in really high demand and high need for filling those positions at their schools, and so you do have to get creative. But we have a few things we're doing, and none of them extremely unique. Our district just recently went to a 4-day model, so we run school Monday through Thursday most of the time, and that's something that's attractive to certain candidates. And like I said, we're not the only school that does that. There's plenty that do, but the more rural and more remote schools are, lots of times they'll go to those measures. We are rural enough, but we're also just a few hours away from some bigger cities, so people can get that 4-day model with us, but still have access to the cities nearby if they want it. And so we went that way to see if it would help with recruiting. We've become very adaptable and flexible with our hiring practices as well, as far as where we reach to, but very importantly, how to grow our own, because we're not convinced that we're just going to be able to keep bringing people from elsewhere with so many industries willing to let people work remotely from wherever they want to be. I mean, they can come live in Elko if they love Elko and not necessarily have to go into the classroom every day. So we find ourselves having to figure out ways to grow the people that have already demonstrated they want to be in our buildings, right? Whether it's our teacher aides or our custodians or whoever, if they have a passion to advance or to become a teacher, we make sure to do our very best to remove all possible barriers, be it through alternative routes to licensure or different pathways and programs through both our local community college, but also opening it up to the bigger state universities and online programs and whatever. Like we can't be in the business of being super discriminatory about how people get their credentials. We just want to make sure we have people who are passionate about being there and helping them find that pathway. And when the funds allow for it, making sure we incentivize them and bring them along, but just always being welcoming of anyone who wants to be there for our kids.
You've been doing this position as superintendent for a little over 2 years. What are some of the lessons you've learned on the job?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned is, in general, like there are some bad faith actors out there, but in general, I think most people are honestly just doing the best they can. They're trying their best. They're advocating for their student, even if you think the thing they said is the most outrageous, outlandish thing you've ever heard. I think at their core, they really think they're advocating for their kid and they're trying to do the best they can. I've got pretty good, but I still get better, but just not taking things personally, respectfully disagreeing, trying to find common ground, trying to figure out how to work with people, right? Because in the end, if at the core, even if the way we're going about things may be fundamentally different, if at the core we can both agree, I want what is best for my student, then I can say, well, I also want what is best for your kid. So let's try to start there and see how we can follow that pathway together. So that's something I've learned how to do. I've also learned how to be very I don't want to say political, but that's kind of the word. Just very tactful in how I
Diplomatic?
Diplomatic is a great word for how I respond to people and talk to others of differing opinions. It's really important not to be offensive in your speech to others, and so I really try hard to give a lot of grace and start from a place where I assume the best intentions in others. So I'm growing a little bit there personally. And
like you said, because at the core, if you look at it that way, who's not passionate about their kids, whether
Right.
it's their kids and they're your student or their kids that you have at home?
Yep, we all care about them. We all want what's best for them. And so let's just do that together.
as part of that strategy, are there tools that you're leaning on, tech tools or things to help students along?
Yeah. So not tools from an assessing the value of those programs per se, but I mean, we're sitting here in the paper booth, so I feel like it's probably okay to mention that paper is one of those tools. It To give you context, so I was working as a school improvement director, and thinking about how to. There's this learning loss. We had some of our schools were in hybrid models, some were in full in person, some were still not in person at all, just depending on the community and what the needs were, and I literally asked myself, we have to have some sort of virtual option for these kids to have access to additional help, because our teachers are burnt out in this hybrid stuff. They're extra burnt out in the virtual model. How are we going to start to fill in these gaps? And it was almost like my inbox populated with stuff like, I know there's, oh, the phones are listening. Like, I don't think that was what happened in that moment, but it was just like the paper email popped up and I was like, oh, I've never heard of paper before. I started looking into it and really liked the partnership that I started to have with the people that I was communicating with. And it really just met all the needs that our kids had at the time, from at-home 24/7 help, because our teachers don't need to be available to our kids at 9 o'clock at night. Like, they have families, they have hobbies. Some of them have additional jobs that they work on. They need to sleep. Like, they have real lives that they need to be able to conduct. But our students, again, just because we can't meet that need doesn't mean they stop having those needs. And so that's what led me to paper, to make sure they had that 24-hour on-demand assistance. Also, because we don't have the resources to have 1-to-5 or 5-to-1 ratio in our classrooms with adults to kids. Paper provides that tutoring opportunity within class as well. The math lessons, the vocab exercise. It was just like, there's so many resources here for our teachers to utilize. And so I was really happy that we found something, and it's been a good partnership so far. So that's for sure one resource that we're definitely trying to figure a way how to keep going, moving into the future, because it's pretty beneficial. We've also made a huge push for mental health resources for our students and their families. Our county had very little to speak of, except for some personnel appointments, positions that existed. But I mean, even just loosely in that regard, not solely targeted towards the mental health resources. And it just became abundantly clear through tragic deaths and other increase in abnormal behaviors and concerning actions from students that we have to do more, but also recognize that we don't have the funds to do it all by ourselves, and we can't have our own in-house mental health department. Like, we don't have the people in the community to do that. We don't have the money to do that. So working with local banks, local other companies, big organizations that exist there, partnering with resources that exist within the community already. It was a very concerted effort that we were happy to lead the charge on, but we recognize this is unsustainable. It's a full-time job for a lot of people to make sure all these resources make it to our students and families. So took a lot of partnership, but I'm very proud of where we are now compared to where we were less than 2 years ago as it relates to mental health services. Made sure it was one of our 4 core things in our strategic plan. We have 4 pillars, and one of them is the mental and physical safety of our students, and really focusing on that. So we're, as we push forward, recognizing that academics are a priority, is what we're there to do. Also recognizing that if certain needs aren't met, the academics are going to go by the wayside anyway. So let's focus on how we can make those things work together. And I think we're heading in a good direction. I don't want to say we're there. We have more work to do.
Tell me about technology and how you're planning ahead for AI really being a part of the future of education.
Yeah, that's something I'm pretty passionate about. We are not ready, or we're not there yet. We're very concerned about student privacy and student data safety and just student safety online in regards to AI. But we are. I'm approaching it from let's figure out how to make this work and make sure our students have access to learn how to utilize this, because it's an essential resource that they're going to have to be very familiar with when whatever career they go into, or higher ed they go into, post-secondary ed. They're going to need to be able to to function with artificial intelligence in the job market. And we're seeing that from economic studies it's going to continue to climb up the list of one of the most marketable skills and probably an essential skill for our students not too long. So we have partnered with one of the foremost education or instructional technology companies in the nation, ISTE, and they go hand in hand with ASCD. So they're two organizations I happen to, just by pure coincidence, be very, very close friends since I was a child with the CEO of ISTE, and so that's as luck would have it, I have a really good connection to ISTE, and so we are working together with them in a very new partnership to not only figure out how to get our teachers acquainted with that technology, but how we're going to develop a comprehensive policy that really is both safe and responsible and respectful, but also kind of pushing those boundaries and making sure we have all resources accessible to our students. So very much in the infancy stages. I don't even want to, there's nothing to brag about there except for we're not ignoring it and we're not just blocking everything and saying, put paper and pen in front of them. Like we're not quite that end of the spectrum, but we are definitely not at the end of where we are fully implemented there. But I have a few stories of teachers who are doing an amazing job of working within the boundaries that they have to make sure our students are getting exposure to it, are learning how to use it. Wow. And they're just kind of, well, I'm not even worried about the cheating aspect of it. Let's try to figure out how we teach them how to utilize it. And it's been really impressive to watch them just do that organically. And maybe they're getting it from an independent PD that they took, or maybe they're just, looking at ideas on the web. But it's encouraging to see teachers doing that on their own, because I know when we come with something official, that appetite clearly already exists. And so again, we're not going to suppress that. We're going to embrace it. We're going to let them run with it. And part of what we're doing also it's going to include a teacher leadership cohort that's really going to be in charge of advancing that forward with our digital coach that we have at our district. And I'm excited about it. But I probably said more about it just now than I've ever said to anyone before. Like we're really looking forward to what we're going to do there.
I like the idea of a digital coach, because I think to try and go from what's been the traditional education model, and you almost have to have somebody that can coach you through it all.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned what sort of things are we not losing, or are we figuring out a way to keep as even though the funding's going away? That's a position that was initially funded through COVID relief funds, and we quickly found out, okay, well, something else is going to have to go or move, because there's no way we can get rid of that position. And it helps that the person we have in that position is just a rock star in what she does, and the teachers love her, and she just does such a good job and taking people where they are and bringing them to the next step, and help kind of the coalition of the willing, so to speak, to integrate all the technology in the classroom that they can with the resources we have. And so that's another one that's not going anywhere. In fact, as I just described, we're figuring out how to amplify it. I've got some other big dreams for that, but they're so wild. I kind of don't want to mention them to a camera or to a microphone. So I'll hold on to those.
We'll play it back for you at a later date, right? We'll talk about 2024 and what your objectives are.
First and foremost, I really want to make sure we do a good job sticking true to what we said we were going to do. Our district had never had a strategic plan prior to last year, and so we pretty much from day one that I entered, we partnered with an organization to, over about a 9-month period, very consciously and intentionally develop a strategic plan that our board and our stakeholders would be happy with. And so just kind of in the beginning stages of implementing that, we've made a lot of good progress towards it, but it was like a 3 to 5 year plan. And so I've got more work to do there. So I want to stick true to that. The mass exodus almost of our board members from before. We do have a very young board, and thankfully all good at heart and what's best for our community and our students. And so continue to work with them to make sure we stay on the same page and bring our schools forward. So I'm really focused still on building those relationships, focusing on our plan, really focused on how do we regain public trust and how do we work closely with our local officials and our community to recognize the great need. I mean, I could in about 30 seconds rattle off about 150 to $200 million worth of needs that exist. And so that has become a paramount priority for us to actively work on that. And I mean, pretty much every day. Earlier this morning, I was taking some actions there with all of that, really trying to rally community support. I mean, those three things, that's a lot to do. That's a lot to do. And then just keep moving forward. You don't want to get into a rut where, well, we'll focus on this stuff and then other things get left behind. We got to continue to have refresh schedules for our curriculum and our textbooks, for our Chromebook rotations. Like if you lose sight of the things that kind of keep the ship going, all of a sudden you got a leaky ship and you're sinking, no matter how beautiful the sails are. You have to really focus on keeping it all together as you try to pick out new ways to enhance our delivery. So a lot of plates spinning all at the same time, but I think we're doing okay right now.
What kind of pearls of wisdom would you give to other people who might want to be a superintendent?
Pearls of wisdom, huh? I think that the only reason you should be doing this job is because you truly believe that you can help and you want to help and you're ready to make a difference. It's not because, it pays more. It's not because there's a, limelight for it. Because, I mean, who cares about that? It was all about like, okay, someone's got to take this and someone's got to do something good with it, because I've got 4 kids that go to our schools. I as I like to say to people, I give a crap about how our schools do. I genuinely care. And that's my own children that are going to be in those classrooms. And so when I started to think of it from that lens, and then started to think, well, that director over there's got 2 kids in the school, and he's got 2 little kids in the school, and we all are fully invested in these schools. And so you have to be in it for the right reason. Don't be in it for any other reason than you genuinely want to be there and to do that. And then I get the other bit of wisdom is, you have to be able to not take yourself too seriously. I thankfully still, when people call me Superintendent Anderson, it's still, please ditch the title. Just call me CJ. I'm just me. I'm a person who is willing to do this job when a lot of people aren't. And that's the only difference. I'm willing to be a punching bag sometimes, and other people are not willing to be that. And but I'm still just me. I have the dad struggles that everybody else has. I have all the same struggles as anybody else. So just trying to be yourself. I really make a concerted effort to take time for me. I try to exercise as much as possible. I go skiing whenever I can in the winter. I'm participating in a local community theater musical. And people are like, how do you have the time? And I said, well, I don't really have the time, but I make the time to do something and be involved and find ways so that my only identity is not Superintendent Anderson, because I don't even want people to call me that. So why would I make that who I am, right? Like, I have to be more than a superintendent. Like, that's what I do. That's not who I am. And so I try to be me regardless of where I am and what I'm doing. And so I think you have to be able to do that. And I feel like it's helped me. I see people, they get burnt out real quick and talk about how tough the job is and how much they're not sure about it. And I don't have those thoughts or feelings ever. Not really. There's moments where you're like, oh man, that was a tough one. But I go home, I sleep well at night. I never lose sleep ever. And I think it's just because I make sure that that's not all I am. I can't be defined by what my job is. I'm me, and I try to be that way all the time.
All right. Singing your own tune.
You got
on stage or at the district office. Well, CJ Anderson, thank you so much for being here from Elko County School District in Nevada. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it so much.